Today's video is going to be a bit different. The N64 has been pretty much one of my favorite consoles since we were young. We used to play it all the time with my cousins and mates. Some great memories and some great times. So I'm going to do a top 15 of my favorite N64 games. And however, to start off with, I'm going to do some notable mentions of games that didn't quite make the list, but are worthy of mention. Starting off with the classic Donkey Kong 64. How many of you guys can remember the DK rap? It's something special, right? Rare were on a bit of a roll with the N64, but this one didn't quite make it, I don't think. I'm not sure what it was, whether they went a little bit too much with the range of characters, the levels, or for me it was probably the absolutely crazy range of collecting that you had to do. You had to go in with different characters and do all sorts of collectibles, and it just took ages and it was a bit of a chore. So yeah, for me it just wasn't as good as the other 3D platformers that were available on the N64 at the time. However, it's still worth playing, I think. It was the first game, or maybe even the only game, that came bundled with the expansion pack. It follows on nicely to my next notable mention. That's right, you might be thinking, what the hell, TJ? Conker's Bad Fur Day is an absolute classic, and you're right. It is awesome. From an era where everything was cutesy and happy and kiddified, Conker's Bad Fur Day was a nice change from the norm. Next up, we've got Space Station Silicon Valley. I don't know if anybody's played this one, but it's a crazy premise. You play as a chip and you crash land on some crazy space station, and essentially you have to inhabit robot animals and then do missions. Diddy Kong Racing. Didn't expect this to be on the list, hey? Again, another rare classic. It's an awesome game, it really is. It just, for me, it's not as good as Mario Kart. The good thing about it though is, compared to Mario Kart, there's 3 different types of vehicles. You have the hovercraft and the plane, which makes nice variation. And unlike Mario Kart, there's like a overworld, which you have to drive around before you enter the different levels. You'll spot Conker and Banjo, they were also in the game, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's definitely worth playing, and I recommend it to you guys if you want to try something different compared to Mario Kart. A lot of people actually think it's better, but for me it doesn't have nostalgia. Next up, what you're seeing here is WCW vs NWO World Tour. So this is the first of the Aki games. So you could probably guess what's coming up later on this list, but it's notable mention because it was the first one that we played. So the engine and the character design and the moves and all the rest of it were kind of set up here. If you're into wrestling, it's well worth it. Give it a go. You won't be disappointed. Here we go. Top 15. Coming up, we have 1999 from LucasArts. Star Wars Episode 1 Pod Racer. There's a movie game tie-in. Anybody that's into Star Wars would have seen Episode 1 The Phantom Menace at this time. The game actually had voice acting by Jake Lloyd and the dude that voiced Sebulba, which was pretty cool. It was actually the best-selling sci-fi racing game at the time, and it had over 3 million video sales even. In total there were 21 races and 2 unlockables, and in total there were 7 variations of levels which had been put together in various ways. 14. Another rare game, you'll see a common thread here. Blast Corps from 1997 by Rare. Single player game. It was actually Rare's first N64 game. It had a modest 1 million sales. You basically take control of 8 different vehicles and you just have to clear a path while ramming into stuff for a nuclear carrier, a missile carrier. You had 57 levels and you could play as a bulldozer or a dump truck. There's a buggy, a tricycle, robot mechs. Overall, it's just good fun really. Number 13. 2000's Pokemon Stadium. It's actually a sequel to a game that originally came out in Japan. I didn't even know that. Developed by Nintendo's internal games developer studio. It came with a transfer pack, which is quite revolutionary. It allowed you to transfer your Pokemon into the game from green in Japan, red and blue and yellow. Essentially there's a whole range of different battle modes. All 151 of the base Pokemon were modelled in full 3D. You can see that you could have various different setups, you know, challenges and tournaments, loads of cups and things that you could do, challenge the gym leaders and the Elite Four, and then go against the champion, then battle Mewtwo. My favourite part of the game though is the crazy little mini games that came out with it. There are 9 different games in total and various different Pokemon doing crazy stuff. My personal favourite is this Lickitung Sushi game. It's classic Japan. Go around, you gotta try and eat the stuff with bonuses, but you gotta avoid the wasabi, otherwise you go crazy. It's loads of good fun. If you like Mario Party, then it's worth playing. And there's a sequel, Pokemon Stadium 2, which had even more little mini games and expanded for Gold and Silver. Well worth a look in if you're a Pokemon fan. Number 12. 1997 by Nintendo's, again, EAD studio. We have, depending on where you are, Lilat Wars in the UK, or Star Fox 64 stateside. And this was a sequel to the SNES game Starwing, which also had an unofficial sequel that came out in the SNES Mini. See, it's a big box game. Came bundled with a Rumble Pack. I think it was the first vibration that you could get in the controller from a home games console. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's 4 different characters, well, you only really control Fox. There were 3 different vehicles that you went around in. You can see the Wing on the screen. But there are also levels where you take control of the tank on the ground or you go underwater. So the game essentially it's an on-the-rails type arcade shooter where, where the screen takes you around and you go around shooting bad guys. It does, however, later on expand into open type areas where you shoot the bosses, just to mix it up. There are actually 2 different endings, and you can branch off in different ways. There's 16 levels altogether. Number 11. 1999's home port of the arcade classic Gauntlet Legends. I don't know if anybody's played this. It's essentially a dungeon crawling hack and slash game. You go around with up to 3 of your mates, and you're basically going across 25 classic fantasy type levels where you go around killing bad guys. Beating them up. You can choose one of the 4 normal classes. You could be the typical warrior or the archer or the wizard or a Valkyrie. I've just got loads of fond memories, me and some of the boys coming together, just going around beating up all the bad guys. one after one, taking cheap shots, stealing the health from each other, getting in each other's way. If you got some mates and they don't mind doing this sort of stuff, exploring fantasy type games, such a good laugh. I've recently just picked up another copy of this game just to do that with some of the boys when they come over. I'm quite looking forward to it. It's good fun. Number 10. Another rare game. Game bored of them yet? This time it's 2000s. Can you guess it? Should be easy by now. 2000s Perfect Dark. And for those who were around at the time, this was like an unofficial sequel to the N64 classic GoldenEye. It's set more in the future. I think they got inspiration from like Blade Runner, that sort of flex. But you're playing a new character, an original character called Jonah Dark. It essentially uses the same game engine from GoldenEye, but just upgraded and improved kind of every way, really. The weapons and the gameplay and the mechanisms, the mechanics are all much better compared to GoldenEye, or improved upon. Like GoldenEye before it, the game has a pretty good single player campaign, to be fair, and considering it's completely original, they did a really good job with it. Essentially, there's an alien kind of conspiracy, evil corporations, spying, the usual good stuff, conspiracy, etc. Loads of gadgets, loads of toys. The weapons are much crazier in this. Like I said, they improved the AI. There's all sorts of different stuff that you have to do. So they really did do a good job with it. I remember really enjoying the single player campaign.
Who are you and what are you doing here? Look out! She's got a gun!
Just like with GoldenEye, these guys did a really good job on the multiplayer. Again, split screen. They rather cheekily copied the 3 of the levels from GoldenEye. You can see the temple. It's pretty much the same thing, except just updated graphics and a little bit of layout changes to make it a little bit better. And there's new versions of the guns as well. Number 9. Shock Horror. Another Star Wars game. This time it is Rogue Squadron from Fact 5 and Lucasfilm. Came out in 1999. Actually also ported to Windows. As well, loads of Star Wars games at the time. For anybody who's a Star Wars fan of this sort of time, the options were TIE Fighter versus X-Wing. Again, another great game. But for home consoles, when this came out, it completely blew all the Star Wars fans away. Just for the range of ships and levels, it really was a step above everything else. For home console gamers, it was pretty much the first time you got to have a real good high quality space battle version of the Star Wars games. In total, it had 5 different ships, but then there were also secret ships which you had to unlock as you played the game. There's also 16 different levels, but you could also unlock 3 secret levels. You can probably guess what they are. The first one being the trench run on the Death Star with the X-Wings. Takes you right back to a New Hope. The game took advantage of the expansion pack, so you got slightly souped up graphics. The other secret level that you unlocked, well, obviously, is going to be the Battle Path. And the final one was Beggar's Canyon, which is a bit dud. And at the time, they did a pretty cool thing. They secretly added the code for the Naboo Starfighter, even though the game came out before Episode 1 was released in cinemas. They hid the code in there, and after the movie came out, they gave everybody the code that allowed them to unlock the Naboo Starfighter, which I thought is a pretty cool little thing that they did. It's not something that they do anymore. Number 8. Everybody's favorite party game. You know you love it too. It is Mario Party. This is the first one, although all 3 could be put together, I suppose. 1999, made by Hudson. It is a 4-player party game where you and some mates can either play in the various board games or do different modes. In total, there were 6 different board maps, which you go around in 20, 35 or 50 turns. There were 50 different mini games where you could do every man for himself, 1 versus 3 or 2 versus 2. Seriously good fun, guys. If you got some of your mates and you just want to have a little bit of silly competitive fun, there isn't much funnier than some of the games on this. And like I said, Mario Party 1, 2 and 3 on the N64 were all great. In total there were 9 sequels, I believe. They go all the way to Mario Party 10. And there's various spin-offs and bits and pieces on other consoles. All in all, it's such a good laugh, and I'd highly recommend to anybody with an N64 that they have a go. You will not regret it. Number 7. You knew this was coming up, guys, right? Surely. After the last few weeks video where I bought No Mercy from the Games Fair. This is the creme de la creme of wrestling games. It really doesn't get much better than this. Released or published by THQ and developed by Aki. No Mercy on the N64 is pretty much the best in wrestling games in my opinion. It was the 4th game in the series, kind of, after the 2 WCW and the WrestleMania 2000. Widely considered by most wrestling fans with the best all-round game engine. You could do so much stuff on this game. They had so many different modes, 60 characters, which is crazy. Create a wrestler if you wanted to put all your favourite WCW guys back in, and anybody else. It's massively successful. It's definitely a cult classic, over 1 million sold. And yeah, if you got 3 mates and you want to have a bit of a laugh and you don't really fancy playing any of the new ones, this is all round just good fun. It's easy to get into. The engine just works really well. Must have for wrestling fans. There were 2 unofficial sequels I didn't know about until recently. They used the engine to do Def Jam Vendetta and Def Jam Fight for New York, which came out later on the next gen. And I just learned actually they hired the main guy to do a modern wrestling game called AEW Fight Forever. It's coming out soon. So yeah, definitely need to look into that. Classic. WWF.
WWF. No mercy.
Number 6 is definitely going to surprise you. That's right.
Me, Mario.
My 6th choice is Super Mario 64. 1997's launch game with the console. I think came out alongside Wave Race. Yeah, it's pretty high up on the list actually, considering it's considered one of the greatest games ever. Let me explain. So obviously I recognise its brilliance, right? This is the first proper 3D platformer game. It revolutionised how people played 3D games compared to what was available at the time. I mean, it is a masterpiece. 120 stars, 15 levels, there's like 15 secret stars, all the different collectibles and all the various characters you meet along the way, the various boss battles, the level design, the different worlds. Even Peach's castle was so cool to explore. It's just that compared to another game on this list that's coming up, it's just not as good for me. That's not to say that you shouldn't play it. I mean, obviously guys, it's Still number 6 on my list of N64 games. It is a must play, really. Everybody should have a go if you're into 3D platformers and Mario. It is incredible. It's been remastered a few times now as well. You can get it on the Switch as part of the latest All-Stars. Worth picking up just because of its limited run. You can see there's so many different modes. There's races and flying and swimming. You get the different caps that make you go transparent to go through walls, or turns you into Metal Mario so you look like the T-1000. It's just great fun from start to finish, guys. Must have, must play, must own, and well worth being on 6. Number 5. You know we mean business now. You guessed it. 99's HAL Laboratories Super Smash Bros. Everybody's played this by now, right? If you're watching this, you know what Smash Bros is. This is the first one that came out, so it's pretty revolutionary. After playing, you know, Mario Kart, Mario Party, and you know, the various other respective games, Nintendo went completely outside the box, I think, and put in this weird, crazy concept of a 2D platform fighter, where instead of beating down your health bar, instead you took health damage as a percentage, and it made you easier to knock off the screen the more damage you took, and you got points by knocking them off the screen. Pretty revolutionary then, and it just worked really well. And like I said, it is the first time you had all these awesome characters from all the various Nintendo franchises all together in a single game. And it just worked. It just clicked for everybody. There you saw the secret hidden characters. And the best part of Smash Bros has to be the competitive multiplayer, right? Like so many other games on this list. Playing against your mates in a fast-paced fighting game, which is unlike anything else conventional. It's just so much fun. The different items, the different special moves that everybody can do, the cheap shots. Yeah, Suds, I'm talking to you. I think it's been unbeaten since, really. There's been a few imitations, but nothing's come close to Smash Brothers. My box is battered. I need to get a new one. And yeah, some of the best part is the local levels. Again, came along with all the music, so it really does feel like you're touring Nintendo's greatest. The characters look and sound and feel like the respective players. The various Easter eggs from the different power-ups that you get really add to the experience. It's just amazing. Number 4. What do you think it's going to be? Gives it away straight away, right? That's right. Mario Kart 64, 1997. Another Nintendo released game. You can see the trend now, right? It's kind of obvious. Sequel to Super Mario Kart on the SNES. It's pretty funny, actually. The game itself is in 3D, the tracks. You can see the characters were all done with 2D sprites. This time there's 8 different characters from the various Nintendo franchises and 16 tracks across 4 different cups. DK Jungle Parkway was my personal favourite, with the jump and the various little nuts and stuff. Really good fun. There's also an amazing 4-player battle mode where you go around bursting everybody's balloons, which is just again another good laugh if you're playing with your mates. This is one of those games that I can just pick up and play whenever. And obviously the success is unparalleled today now. Top 3. You can guess what's coming up now. I've already mentioned it. Another absolute rare masterpiece, a tour de force even, from 1998. This is the sweet spot for me, in my opinion, for 3D platformers on all platforms. It is Banjo-Kazooie. They basically took the Mario 64 formula. It was originally actually an RPG, I think, that was due to come out on the SNES, and essentially just evolved over time when they carried out development. Like I said, they essentially got inspiration from Mario 64. They took all the best bits and just improved on it, whereas Nintendo obviously themselves didn't come out with a Mario sequel. I think Rare improved on it in every single way, really. There were more moves, more collectibles. The graphics were, I think, better, more colourful, more vibrant, better textures. And the camera was a little bit naff at times, but the humour was better. The overworld in this instance was massive. It was a level in its own right. It had its own different secrets and things that you could discover and explore. Like, some of the level design is amazing. This is one of my favourite platform levels on all games, really. I think it's called Gobi Gobi Desert. There's so much personality in all the different characters that you meet and the different missions that you have to do. Like, each level has Jiggies, Jingos, Nuts, Mumbo tokens, which you use to transform into an animal and carry out, very specific tasks. All really well thought out, all really well designed. It just works in every single way. Like I said, there's 9 different levels, all different themed, some of them really clever. The last level is essentially a giant forest, which you have 4 different seasons and they're linked together with what you do here and there. It's just incredible. A real tour de force of game design, really. They knew that they had something special. So there was a sequel to Banjo-Tooie, which I've started but never actually finished. But it's meant to be almost as good, but not quite as good. But worth checking out either way. So for those who haven't already, I think it's a must-own, really, for the N64. You should definitely try it. It's real good fun, and I don't think you will regret it. Number 2, heating up now. Can you guess what it is? Giving it away yet? That's right, controversially, my second favourite game for the N64 is Ocarina of Time. You notice I haven't mentioned Majora's Mask yet. That's because honestly, I've never properly played it, which is funny in itself, considering how much I like Ocarina of Time. I've played this game so many times on different mediums. I think probably the best version of it is on the 3DS, where they remastered it a bit and added the 3D effects. Everybody knows about Ocarina of Time, guys. It's probably renowned as one of the best games ever made. The story is so well written. You play across 2 different time zones, young Link and old Link. It's got that classic Zelda formula, which built upon what they did with A Link to the Past, which in itself is an amazing game. Other clips of the very first dungeon here, which is the Deku Tree, but in general there were 3 levels as a youngster and then 5 levels as you grow up. It's got all the classic tropes, all the things you remember. Just the music in itself is good enough to make the list, right? Everybody remembers probably one of the most impressive things that they did with the game was the breadth and design of the dungeons, but also the bosses. And this is Goma. I still remember playing the first time as a kid thinking this is crazy. The level of detail and the atmosphere that a game puts you in, how it slowly builds up over time with all the moves and the weapons. Nice little progression, and it takes you all the way through this massive story. Like I said, it's across time. It's just an absolute masterpiece. If you haven't played it already, what's wrong with you? you really should track down a copy of the game. It's available on so many mediums that you have no excuse really. Just get and do it, guys. You wouldn't regret it. Number 1 should be obvious by now. That's right. I should give it away already. It is the 1997 hit from Rare, once again. GoldenEye 007. What else do I need to say about this game? You guys probably know a bit. You probably have played it. You probably had deathmatch sessions on it with your boys or girls. It was, of course, a movie tie-in to the 1995 Pierce Brosnan classic. What else do I need to say about this? It's just the perfect first-person shooter video game time for me. I'm a James Bond fan. I love James Bond, so to be able to go in and essentially be James Bond as he was in a movie, kick ass, to me is just incredible. The level design make you felt like you were in the movie. All the guns were there. There's so much detail with the various characters. And then obviously what everybody probably remembers it mostly for is the quality of the multiplayer deathmatch. The different modes and all the characters you could pick, the various settings, the types of games. It's second to none really in terms of nostalgia and for the amount of gameplay that we did. And performance wise, it's surprisingly holds up really well, I think. You can still pick it up today with your boys and have a good laugh shooting everybody. The control's pretty ropey, but the mechanics, everything just works. It's just a good laugh. So if you and your mates are bored, it's on the Switch Online now. I would 100% recommend everybody have a go. So there you have it, my top N64 games. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments what your choices were. Until then, I'll see you on the next one.